Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, program, and portfolio management. This podcast is brought to you by PM Powered, a consulting company in project, program, and portfolio management that can meet your needs in any of those areas. So without further ado, let's get going. The first thing I want to talk about is what PMI, the Project Management Institute, has to offer here lately. I haven't done that in a while, so I thought I'd let you know. In case you're wanting to do some training because you need some PDUs, there is a Seminars World. No, that's already happened. Let's get to May. There's a Seminars World in Charlotte from 6 to 9 May. Then the PMI EMEA Congress is from 13 to 15 May, and this year it happens in Dublin, Ireland. And I'm actually going to be there for a meeting right before the EMEA Congress, so I'm looking forward to it. Dublin's one of my favorite places to travel to. Then there's a Seminars World in Dublin from 16 to 17 May, a Seminars World in Washington, D.C. from 13 to 16 May, so it looks like they have two going on. There's a Mega Seminars World in Orlando from 24 to 27 June, and one in Chicago, from a Seminars World in Chicago from 15 to 18 July. And then there's a lot more. But the PMI Global Conference is in Philadelphia this year because it's the 50th anniversary, and that's where PMI started. And that's from 5 to 7 October. Then there's a PMO Symposium, and that's in Denver, Colorado this year from 3 to 6 November. So hopefully you'll be able to capture one of those PMI events so that you can capture some PDUs, network with friends, and make new acquaintances, and maybe even get some business deals out of it. So let's go to the next one. Projectified. I've talked about this podcast that PMI does on occasion, and there's two new ones from March, and one is on social responsibility, promoting gender equality. There's still not as many female project managers as there are males, and I contend that we have a different way of doing project management. But hopefully, as time goes on, we'll see that gender gap shorten. Then the second one, which I find very interesting, and I've actually talked about before, and I've written papers on it, is leadership managing multi-generational teams. Right now in the workplace, there's 5 different generations, so we have to know how to deal with these different generations, and especially with the millennials. They have a different way of looking at the world. So let's go on to something that was kind of interesting to me because it captured my attention on some of the statistics they brought out. But this one is by HR Drive. It's called Marriott Shares Its Secret Sauce for a People-Centric Culture. I'm really not going to look into that as much, but something that really captured my eye is it says that a whopping 65% of employees would forego a pay raise to see their leader fired. And I can identify with that because I've worked in 2 places where to me, the leader could have gone by the wayside. And in fact, I quit one of the companies because I couldn't stand the leader anymore. And it says, and while employee engagement has gone up in recent Gallup surveys, 13% were actively disengaged. And that's gone up. So it's trending upwards in actively being disengaged. So that says something about our workforce, that we can't capture our people. And that 65% of employees that would rather see their boss fired than to take a pay raise, that came from a Forbes survey. So what does Marriott do to keep their employees engaged? Well, they tend to be very employee-centric. And they actually have 15,000 ambassadors that go out and look at ways to capture the culture within the organization and push it forward within the employees. They also delegate responsibility down to the floor level, those that are customer focused. And if you go to a Marriott, you see that. Now, I'm not going to say they don't have some hiccups someplace, because they do, but Marriotts tend to be very focused on their customers. Let's see, let's go to the next one. And this is a plug for veterans out there. I'm a veteran, and I understand how difficult it is sometimes to get a job. And these are 4 reasons why hiring veterans makes good business sense. Did you know that there's 1.3 million active duty troops and another 865,000 in Armed Forces Reserves? This makes this one of the biggest military forces on the planet. So think about, but yet it only represents 0.5% of the American population. So when these people get out of the military, they are very good for your company, but yet they have a very difficult time getting hired into your company. So what makes them so special? Well, veterans are trainable. From the moment we enter into the military, we are constantly being trained. Training is one of the foremost things that happens in the military. So we understand how to be trained and how to take that training and be adaptable and adapt it to something else. So for example, they were talking about teaching an infantryman. So when an infantryman is taught, he's taught the basics of infantry, but that same infantryman may be going into a disaster recovery area, or that infantryman may be going in to do humanitarian aid. They have to take their infantry response and adapt it to the situation. So we are very adaptable. We know how to take what's around us and from our training and adapt it to what needs to be done. Veterans are leaders. We are taught how to lead from the very second we come in. Even in basic training, you are taught how to lead, and everybody is given that opportunity to lead. That's not true in the civilian world. You're not taught how to lead until you get into a leadership position, and that's a sad situation. So if you don't hire veterans for any other reason, hire them for their leadership capabilities and let them lead. I know when I was hired into a company, I wasn't allowed to lead. And that was one of the gifts that I had to offer a civilian company. Veterans learn to be selflessness. And that's true. We look at the common good. We don't look out for number one, myself. We go for what's good for the military, what's good for our troops, what's good for the buddy next to me. So we are selfless, so we can focus on the goals that need to be done and take it to the next step. We know how to take constructive criticism. By gosh, we know we in the military, we're getting it constantly, whether it be in a positive or a negative environment. We are yelled at. We are told more cajoling how to do things correctly. So yes, we know how to take constructive criticism, and we know how to take it without being taking it personally. We understand that it's to make us a better person. So go out there and take a risk and hire a veteran. But veterans, what can you do? You can learn the lingo of the industry that you want to go out to. Talk to people in that industry. Talk to your buddies that are already in industry. Have them look at your resume. Let them be able to translate it into civilian terms. Putting out their platoon sergeant or first sergeant doesn't tell a lot to a lot of civilians unless they've been in the military. So make sure you know how to take your resume and translate it into the civilian world. And I think they do that with many transitions from military to civilian. So make sure that you take absolute advantage of all of those areas. So let's jump into something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about technology right now, and this comes from Singularity Hub. And this is something that we can do, and I would love to talk to the project manager for this because it sounds like a very interesting thing. It's a bus-sized robot will soon be mining the ocean floor. And I have mixed feelings on this, but I'll get into that in a little bit later. But the robot is called Pitania, and I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but anyway, it's Pitania 2, and it was named after the fastest caterpillar on the earth. So I had no idea. So there, if you play Trivial Pursuits, you now know that. So what is it going to do? There's a lot of minerals and heavy metals that are on the bottom of the ocean that we can use up here. The first of these robots is going to be positioned here soon. And it will go out, and it's like a Roomba vacuum cleaner. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it vacuums your floors autonomously. You don't have to do anything to it, or your carpets. So this thing will be like a Roomba vacuum cleaner where it goes out and it moves around on the floor and it sucks up these minerals. It has been programmed to take these minerals and metals and put it into a certain part of the floor and take it up. So I think this is a very good technology, but I'm very worried about what we're going to do to the ocean floor because it's got to disrupt the ecology that's going to go on down there. I see what mining has done to the U.S. and strip mining, and I wonder if we might do the same thing to the ocean floor and kill it. So let's hope we don't do that. We are already destroying our coral reefs. And by no means am I somebody that pushes that we shouldn't do technology because it's going to ruin everything. But I think this is something that could possibly do it if we're not very careful. And by the way, Hawaii is already doing, Japan is already doing this. They don't go out as deep as this is. This is in the deepest part of the ocean. They just do it along their coastal waters, and they are bringing up minerals and heavy metals that they use for within their own country. So there are advantages to it, but we do have to be very careful on how we use this technology. So the last place I'm going to go to, and I don't want to talk about it in a lot of detail because I don't really understand it, but this again comes from Singularity Hub, but Microsoft is building an all-in-one DNA data storage device. So it's actually taking data and putting it onto DNA. So if you remember DNA from your high school days, it's four, and I can't remember the letters. One is A, one is G, but I've got it here down in this. But they take this and they code data on it. So where is this technology right now? And by the way, it's not only Microsoft. There's other companies doing it right now. But the only thing that they have done that they have programmed onto DNA is the word hello. And that's only 5 bytes of data. And right now, it took 21 hours to write the data and then to read it back out. So it's very much in its infancy. I would even say it's in the fetal stage at this point. But and they're saying that if we can go to this DNA storage, that a data center that we have, a huge data center, can be brought down to a couple of dice size data centers. Can you imagine that? If you bring a whole data center down to the size of a piece of dice, to the size of a dice, that's amazing to me. So, but think about the device costs about $10,000, but that's not very expensive considering it's in its infancy. But consider this, DNA technology is moving very quickly, and the sequencing of the first human genome costs about $2.7 billion, that's with a B, dollars, and it took 15 years. But in just 20 years later, private companies will do it for under $1,000 in a matter of weeks. Can you believe that? That's amazing to me that in 20 years we've been able to now sequence individual human DNA, and then we do it in a matter of weeks, where before it took us years and it cost a lot of money. I actually remember them talking about that and how it was a big deal. But those 4 letters that I was talking about are A, T, C, and G. Sorry, I forgot about that, but I couldn't remember back to my high school human biology days. So anyway, think about where we're going to be in 20, 30 years from now when they can take all of the data storage and put it onto dice size storage area. And we can now put this in, you can put it in the office of the CEO, you can put it in the office of the CIO, and it's right there. Can you imagine that? We just have to be careful that people don't step on it, because then all of your storage is gone. And I say that kind of facetiously. Obviously, it will be stored in a way that it's not able to people to go in and just hack right off of it, or step on it, or do other things, or use it as dice, for example. But anyway, and I'm being a little facetious there, I know that. I'm Wanda Curley. This podcast has been brought to you by PM Powered, your consulting company on project, program, and portfolio needs. Please follow me on PM Current. You can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Sorry about that. So I would love to hear from you if you are a project manager or if you work at Marriott and want to share your culture with us and how you do it. I would love to hear from you. If you're a veteran and you have a story to tell, please contact me. I'm Wanda at pmpower.com. I would love to hear from you, and let's talk about these things. If there's somebody from PMI that would like to come on and promote their mega world or the seminar world, I would love to hear from you as well. Again, take care, have a great week, and have a blessed week, and I'll see you next Monday.